Hello Internet, I'm back. My name is Andrew Eder, and this is another episode of Film Editorials, where today I and fellow intermittent YouTuber VONSAPRO, that's how you say it, right?
VONSAPRO.
Right. We're going to be talking about Gravity and reviewing it. So, let's get started.
Space, the final frontier. I can't even do it serious.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the... What's the name of the ship? Let's start with some basic information. It stars Sandra Bullock and George Clooney and was directed by Alfonso Cuarón.
Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
I've been saying it wrong this entire time.
How have you been saying it?
Curion.
The plot of the movie is that Sandra Bullock and George Clooney are two astronauts trying to improve and fix the Hubble Space Telescope when suddenly a whole bunch of space debris comes and ruins everything. After the space debris hits the fan and everything else, Sandra Bullock and George Clooney have to get out of space. It sounds like it's easy, but it's not, because you actually have to fall in the right direction and safely. Safely being the extremely difficult part of that equation.
The most difficult part, I would say.
My big takeaway from Gravity was that it was spectacular, in that it was a spectacle. I love looking at that movie. I like hearing that movie. The sound design, despite the fact, and because of the fact, I would say, that there's no sound in space, they do a really, really good job with the sound design, and the music, and everything that you hear, and everything that you see is just great. The effects are awesome. Seeing it in IMAX 3D is an excellent decision if you have the possibility to do that. I would recommend it. I did, and you did.
Yes, and even if you don't have the ability to see it in IMAX 3D, you should still see it in 3D. Because, I mean, there are some movies where I feel like, oh, this was shot in 3D, but it didn't need to be. Like, the last Harry Potter movie was a good example. It was 3D just for the sake of being 3D and bringing in more revenue, but this needs to be in 3D, and he broke a record.
Yeah.
It was the longest, the opening shot is 13 minutes. It's the longest consecutive shot ever filmed in 3D.
That's one heck of a long take.
Holy crap. And it's like, it sets the stage for the movie, because, I don't know, because in space, everything is long, it's drawn out, you're in space, everything's huge. And I don't know, I just feel like that was really important. Good job, Alfonso.
You're not going to say
I'm not going to say his last name, because I can't.
The movie, however, is not a perfect movie. There are problems I have with the story. A lot of it has to do with things being convenient. There's also a problem with her backstory.
What backstory?
There's the total backstory with her and her daughter, and her history.
Yes, but you only get, like, that much. It's just like, oh, I had a daughter this one time, and then that's all you get.
She has so much stuff going on. She's a doctor. She spends all her time at the hospital. She spends all her time moping for her daughter.
That's a lot of all of her time.
And then she spends all of her time for the past 6 months training to be an astronaut, which doesn't train her really to do anything because she still has a lot of holes in her information.
See, my problem with it was that George Clooney is just chilling in his jetpack, and he's like, oh, I've only got one burst left. Like, we need to wait until we drift closer. Meanwhile, Sandra's only got 1% oxygen left.
Yeah.
But I held my breath. She'd been dead like 8 times over.
Those are two more things that go into the convenience category. That movie would have ended 5 minutes in, like I predicted when I first saw the trailer, if George Clooney didn't have a jetpack. If George Clooney didn't have a jetpack, that movie ends 14 minutes in, because Sandra Bullock would have just flown off into space, and then frozen, and then George Clooney would have run out of jet fuel or whatever, and burnt to a crisp. Like I predicted when I first saw the trailer. The next was the fact that Sandra Bullock can breathe her own CO2 for about 10 minutes.
At least.
Now, there was one scene in particular that you wanted to address.
This was my favorite scene of the movie.
Favorite scene?
It was definitely the most comical scene. First of all, what you have to, if you're going to watch the movie and you haven't seen it yet, what you need to watch for are flying Post-it notes. I said this to Andrew right before you went in, but there is like a pad of Post-its that follow Sandra Bullock around through all of these adventures, and I think something's written on in like Russian or something. You can't read it. But it's just funny to me that there's just these yellow Post-its like constantly about here. Like in the entire movie, they're just like right there. This one scene in particular is she's in the International Space Station. She's actually in an escape pod. She's just having a really bad day. And she gets this like Chinese guy, presumably, I guess he's Chinese, on like the radio thing. She finally ends up talking to someone, and the guy starts howling like a dog, so she starts howling like a dog, and it's like a solid 2 minutes of howling. like 2 full minutes, and I was sitting there, I was like, when is this going to end? Like, is this the end of the movie? And then George Clooney comes out of nowhere and just like, knock, 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 I'm back.
The pacing of this movie is actually pretty good, considering, like, it's mostly long takes. There are very few takes that are short. Most of the shots last a good long time.
Yeah, the longest being the 13-minute one.
Yeah, but the only one that felt like it dragged at all was the one where she's howling like a dog.
Yeah.
The rest of the movie is, like, moving really quickly. That the tension you feel throughout the movie is really good. That's one of the other highlights. Is it's good to watch, it's good to listen to, and you feel tense the whole time, like you should.
The entire time. Like you're saying, it's got a lot of event density.
Yeah.
So it just packs everything in, because you have all the space debris flying at you from all different directions. And that's just like, it makes you feel tense, like pretty much constantly throughout the movie.
The only problem is that it's not in this scene where she's talking to the Chinese guy on the ham radio.
Yeah.
It's
like,
we're like waiting for her to like
do something,
break, have some kind of emotional, like, it's clearly going to be one of the scenes where it's focusing on what she's feeling, not what she's doing.
Yeah.
Which you need those scenes. Like, we had one before where
filler.
she and George Clooney are talking. And so this is another one of those scenes, and it just doesn't get there fast enough. It's like, what? Okay, she's losing it. Got it. Can we move on? No,
Yeah,
no, she's still howling. Okay. How about now? Nope. Okay. Oh, there's a baby there now. There we go. Now we're in the emotions. Okay, good.
It's funny because it's true. And she's just howling and she won't stop. Sandra Bullock's like, bring your dog back. I want to hear it howl. And then she starts howling like the dog. And then the Chinese guy starts laughing at her. And then he starts howling. And you're just, as the audience, you're just sitting there going, what is happening? You feel like you shouldn't be there. You're like, I'm intruding here. I'll let you howl and then I'll come back.
You just let me know when you're done and we can come back later. Finish this in a later time. You mentioned that the movie had a lot of event density. There's a lot of stuff going on in this movie, and
that was event density.
Okay. That combined with the convenience of it and the problems I had with the story, it reminded me a lot more of a movie like Armageddon, which also deals with a space disaster, instead of the thinking space disaster that is Apollo 13. Both movies have their merits. One's a Michael Bay movie. The other one is not a Michael Bay movie and actually is based on real events, and so it's got a totally different kind of tension. And Gravity has a plot more like Armageddon. Bad thing after bad thing after bad thing after bad thing after bad thing, pause. After bad thing after bad thing after bad thing.
Howl.
Someone does something ridiculous. But Apollo 13 has one little thing go wrong, and that drives tension throughout this entire movie, which has a much better story. And I was expecting more of an Apollo 13 kind of tone. And you get elements of that with the whole, like, she looks like a fetus when she finally gets into the pod, and there's the sunlight coming through the window. And then at the end, where there's the whole evolution thing, she ends up in water, and we see an amphibian, then she crawls up on land and stands up. There's this whole, like...
full circle.
Yeah, like, life cycle type of thing going on. Which comes through in the cinematography, and that's fine, but it's not consistent throughout the whole movie. Just you get bits of it here and there. It's not a driving force in the movie. The driving force of the movie is problem and fixing it, problem and fixing it, problem and fixing it.
I'm going to disagree with you there, because, first of all, I've never seen Armageddon, so I can't compare it to that at all. But I have seen Apollo 13. So, in Apollo 13, you not only have the astronauts and what's going on with them and what's going wrong, but you also have their families, you have all of that to fill in kind of like those moments where Sandra Bullock would just be floating.
Yeah.
So, and that Gravity doesn't have that. So
right. You see, there's one scene on Earth.
Yeah, and it's the very end. It's the end. Like, it's the last scene.
I was expecting something like, here's how we got here.
Flashbacks or something like that. But I'm kind of glad that Alfonso didn't, because... And I don't know, I feel like it was really successful in the fact that you didn't see anything else, you only saw Sandra Bullock, because to me, the story wasn't about, like, oh, all of this stuff has happened, we need to fix it. To me, it was about, oh, Sandra Bullock went through this really hard time when she was little. We're not going to touch too much on that because it's about her being reborn.
Fair enough.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So my takeaway from this movie is, if you get a chance to go see it, you definitely should. Because of the effects and the cinematography and the digital cinematography and the sound design. It's really enjoyable experience. It's really well done. It's really well made. There are story elements that are probably going to disappoint you if you're expecting it to be like the best movie of the year, like you're probably hearing in the hype right now.
Or if you're a scientist.
Or if you're a scientist.
I'm gonna rate it. I know Andrew doesn't do ratings, but I'm going to give it, out of 5 stars, I'll give it 4 1/4. Or 4 1/5.
4 1/5.
Because then it'll be like one point
Yeah.
of a star.
Okay. If you've liked this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and subscribe to VONSAPRO.
Me.
You can click her face for that one.
Oh, and look on my channel for the bloopers video.
So yeah, don't forget to subscribe. I will see you next time, or I will be talking about how the Cold War is cool again.
Ooh.
Get it? There's a joke there.
Yes, I did get it.
Yeah, okay. Bye.